Right, okay, so we've got the Vector2 class that I had yesterday, but I've extended it. Okay, one of the great things about objects and object-oriented programming, if you go back and you add some features to a class, you don't alter code that inherited, they just automatically get those features. The next time a project's built, the features are available. So it's actually quite a good way of working. So you can get bare bones going straight away, and then you can incrementally build up features. Right, okay, so what I've done to this one, there wasn't much in that class before, but I've added the word doesn't help here, because it's underlined squiggling these. I've told it several times to stop doing that, but it just ignores me. When they're underlined, okay, I will make sure you get a PDF of the thing so that we don't get this stupidness. It's one of the reasons why I PDF a lot of things. Right, so we have got 4 new members, as we call them as a generalisation. Get one, get right, get left. They're going to be getters, because they start with the word get. And then I've done, just to show you the other element, I've done a method called empty. Now each one of these is underlined. Okay, and an underlined means that is static. Now, static members are not accessible, or they're not used by an instance of an object. Okay, they're available in general. So they basically provide features that are just general features to do with that class. So in these cases, I've actually put the spec down for these. Get one gives you a vector that has got both elements set to 1. Yeah.
Oh, so is that a static to get one?
Yeah. They're underlined. You can't see it for the stupid squiggle. You can't see the squiggle's right over the underline. It's really annoying. In fact, when I did this, I had to put a blank line in the bottom of the class box because the underline was right on the border, which I thought was a bit poor. You know, I thought they would have rendered it differently to that, but there you go. Yeah, they're all underlined. So the getters are static as well. Yeah, so they just give us some standard vectors. Now, if you've done any Unity, you'll notice that there are static ones for the vector 3, and you can get things like up, forward, down, and they're just doing the same thing. They're just going, you know what, this is a common thing, unit vector pointing in the direction. All right, that's all they are. So we're gonna just implement those first. So we're just gonna implement get one, get right, get left. So remember, get means it's a getter. So we aren't creating a function called get one, we're creating a getter called one. So we're going to go back to our class and we're just going to add these in. So again, because they're getters, you can put them where you want, but I tend to just, I don't know why, I just put them at the top. Because they're sort of linked to the fields and things, but I don't know. Right, so the first one, they're all public, notice, because they're all public, they've got the little pluses. Okay, so I'm going to say public, and they return a vector 2, so the type is going to be vector 2. I've forgotten the name already. 1. I'm hopeless. I'm going to do this in one line for compactness. So I'm going to create a getter. Let me get rid of that. Zoom that in a bit. So I'm going to do a getter. Right, so it's going to return a vector 2 of the form, if I look, 1, 1. Alright, so in order to do that, we need to create an instance of vector 2. And we just do that using the keyword new. So I just want to return a new vector 2, and it's going to be 1, 1. And that's it. So that gives someone a really quick and easy way. Don't copy this bit. I'm just going to show you how it will be used. Can just say vector 2 dot 1. Oh, I can't do inside there because I want that. Vector 2 dot 1. Oh, no, I'm being stupid. I've missed the word static out. Oh dear me, I am tired already. Getting started today. Put static, that might help. Okay, the underline just means static. So what I can do, without having an instance of the class, I can just use the class name and I get that. Okay, so that allows me to like have some like default values for complex objects and things like that. Particularly useful for things like vector 2s, and you might do it if you're creating a matrix. What default matrix might people want? Those people who do identity matrix. All right. So yeah, that's a pretty standard one. Use everything. If you're doing transformations, everything starts from an identity. So instead of someone having to donkeydly build an identity matrix, just say, yeah, here you go. Just say matrix.identity, and you'll see that in all the classes and things. Right. Okay. So that's all these are. So I'm just going to add the other ones. What were they called? Right, left, right. So the other two ones are called right, left. So that's just public, static, and all I'm really doing, if I can remember in my head what I am doing, all I'm doing is following the class diagram. I'm doing what the class diagram says. It says this is static, it's public, it's called, which I've forgotten, right. It's called right, it's a getter, because it said get right, and I'm just going to create another vector of the form that I was told in this case. So I said, 1 0. I'm going to do the left one. I'm going to be naughty and copy and paste. Luckily, when you are naughty, it at least tries to say you've already defined that, to try and warn you. And left was -1 for the x value. Okay, so that's just setting up a static getter. Okay, right, and then the final thing I got asked to do was to create a method called empty, which returned a vector 2, and that returned a 0 0. Now I could have done this as a getter, and I probably would have done, but I wanted to show you how to create a method that was static. That's all. So it's a method, so I'm going to put it down at the bottom. So it was public static, that's what the underline means. It returns a vector 2. So actually it's weird, and you can see how the syntax of the getter is a simplification of this. What did I call it? 0, was it? Empty. Yeah, empty. It doesn't need any parameters. And all it's going to do is effectively the same job as a getter. It's going to return a new vector 2, which has got 0 and 0 set. Okay. Now you could argue that the user of this class could have created their object like that, but what we're trying to do is we're limiting how much they type. You always want to be trying to reduce the burden on typing for the programmer, because every time they touch a key, there is a percentage chance that they'll introduce an error. That's what all the tools are geared for. It's not lazy programming. It's funny how copy and paste is a real bad thing for coding. It's really good for a lot of other things. Although, how many times have you seen a document where someone's obviously copied and pasted from a document that was produced the year before and the days are wrong? The date's right, but the days are wrong and things like that. Get that a lot. Okay, right. Anyone got any queries about that? So if it's underlined and you can see it is underlined, because Word's not doing its job, then that just means whatever that thing is, it's going to be static. So the only difference it makes to you is you put the keyword static in. There is actually no difference in the code, is there? Okay. This bit that I did here, this just came from the specification details. I'll try and be as explicit as possible when I give you the things. Okay. So, like I say, I'm going to build another one for tomorrow for you to practice with, and I'll try and mix in and put a lot of these different bits in. Right. Okay. So that was the update to the Vector 2 one. Right, and then what I've also done here, I've got another set of classes, one called Animal. They're not full implementations, they're just to demonstrate this thing. And this one has got things that are marked as virtual. Okay, and then I've put some details in these classes. So we've got the constructor for Animal is just an empty constructor. Eat outputs a new line to the console. Walk outputs a new line to the console, and there's a bit of text there. So let's have a go at building this Animal one. So, and I'll try and retain that in my head. I've lost it already. God. My memory gets worse. I don't know how to do anything anymore. Right, animal, eat and walk. Right, okay, I'm going to go for it. And so I'm going to add a class called animal. So Shift Alt C if you want to do it. Right, so it's called animal. Remember, the key thing we've got to do is we've got to put public on, because that makes sure that the test project can see it. Right, okay, so there was no fields in there, it just had a constructor called animal. So remember, the constructor has no return type, there was no parameters for the constructor, and it was empty. What I tend to do if I'm creating empty constructors, I'll just do the braces on one line. Because I haven't got any code to put in there at the minute. I might come back and put some code in there. But yeah, I'm trying to like leave my code compact. In fact, you will see examples where people do that. And they put the braces on the same line, because it's not taking anything up. Right, okay, so the meat of this example was to add the implementations for eat and walk, both public but marked as virtual. So we need public. Now, it doesn't have anything down as a return type, so we're going to assume they're void. So the first one was called eat. I'll just put the two skeletons in first. What was the other one called? Walk. So public void walk. I was going to put whelp then. It's a bit odd. Or maybe not, I don't know. Right, okay, so the implementation said, eat says, write a new line to console, I would eat if I could. So we're going to do console dot write line, because that's the one that does a new line. What was it? I would eat if I could. I would eat if I could. Oh no, I've gone mad on the capitals and things out up here. Alright, so that implement, and that's in walk, so I've put it in the wrong one because I'm not concentrating. Just move it into eat. And the other one said, comma, that is how I walk. Comma, that is how I walk. Okay, so pretty sparse class. But I was told to make these virtual. So I've put the methods in. So I'm just double checking my class diagram and it said, oh, virtual. So what I put is after the public bit, I just put virtual keyword. It should go blue if you spelt it correctly. What that means is, that is a class, but anything that inherits can add to this function. So it's like, oh, you might, and you can see from what I've named these, animal doesn't know how a specific animal eats, but something that I create, so I'm going to make tiger in a minute, I know how a tiger eats, although you may debate that when you see what I've put. Okay. I'm not a zoologist. Right, so I'm now going to create a class called tiger, which inherits from animal. Now, what I'm actually going to do, I could create another class in a separate file, but I'm actually, just for brevity, I'm just going to dump it in this file. I can have more than one class defined. So I'm going to create a class called tiger, and it inherits from animal. Oh, I've got to put the keyword class. Oh dear. This is why testing, this is why testing coding in an exam isn't very fair. I don't think. Yeah, that's just my opinion. No one but interested in my opinion, but there you go. Right, okay, so we've got the basic structure. We're saying tiger inherits from animal. So let's have a look at what we've got to implement for tiger. So we have got animal as a constructor, but we wouldn't call that. We have to call our constructor tiger. Okay. I haven't been given any details for the tiger constructor, so I'm not going to put anything in. I'm only going to do what I'm told. Okay. Right, now I have got definitions for eat and walk. And there's some specific thing in there, but I'll come back to that in a sec. So I want to implement eat and walk. Now I could just type these in, but because these are virtual in my base class, animal, I can just type the keyword override on a blank line, okay, and when I press space after it, you'll see that the things that are overridable, which is what virtual means in C#, come up. So let's do eat, and it types it all in for me. And it adds a little bit extra there, base.eat. But let's have a look at what our implementation says for eat. Okay, so again, I'm using the features of the editor and the environment to save me typing and making mistakes. Now it says, outputs a new line to the console, I eat bones. So let's do that bit first. So I'm going to say console.writeLine, I eat bones, which is how I think tigers eat. They probably have big marrow bones. Big ones, real massive ones. Right, now it said on the second line of this specification, does not call the base method. Now automatically when you do that override thing, and you get Visual Studio to build the method for you, it will automatically put this in, because in general, when we create virtual methods, what we're saying is you add to the functionality of this method. Okay, but in this case, I don't want to then run this. Okay, I don't want it to do my statement and then do the previous statement. Okay, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Right, okay, so that was the eat one. So we've also got to do the walk one. So again, I'm going to type override and then press space, and I can see walks in there. Notice the other three, they're all from the definition of object, which everything it automatically inherits from. You don't even put that in there, it's just automatically done. Okay, so they're base things. Right, so again, it's put a call to base.what. So let's have a look at our specification. It says outputs to the console without generating a new line with a spring in my step. Okay, so to do that would be console.write, and it may be that you go, how do I do that? How do I write to the console without making a new line? That's what you look up stuff like that. Okay, so you might not have known that it was console.write. You probably would have guessed. Okay, with the spring in my step is what it's going to. Okay, so we do our work and then we say, right, whatever was going to happen in the base class, you do what you want to do. So in this case, I am using it, which is why I've written it in the way I've written it. Okay, right. I think I'm actually going to test this so you can see this working. So I'm going to create an instance of tiger and see what it does when I say tiger.eat or whatever. Okay, so just as we've got to go back to Solution Explorer. So in program, I'll leave hello world in there, not bother. Right, so I'm going to create a tiger. I'm obviously going to call it Dave. So that's going to be a new tiger. And then when I use the instance variable for Dave, I should get eat, and I should be able to say walk. Okay, so I'm going to run this, and hopefully eat will just have a single line, because that's all we said. And it eventually runs. I eat bones. And then the other one says, with a spring in my step, and then it's done the base class code. Comma, that is how I walk. That took my incredible brain power to come up with that. So that formed a sentence. Even though you're probably saying that's not very good English, but hey, that's the story of my life. Constantly being told by teachers that my English was atrocious. Hey, there you go. It's really hampered me in my life, I find. Right, okay, so that I'll stop the vid there.